All countries have parts of their pasts that they're not proud of, that they would rather forget. But it takes courage to face those parts and bring in some light. And this is a time for courage. The courage to hear dissenting voices, such as those of the people who are outside right now protesting. They should be heard and included. They have valid concerns. The courage not merely to say, we take your criticism, but to follow it with action. The courage to say, we were wrong. The courage to say about art acquired illicitly, this is not ours. Tell us what to do with it. The courage to do provenance work and to actively use local knowledge. The courage to act and to act now and not become crippled by endless planning and endless talking. The courage to believe that it can be better. We cannot change the past, but we can change our blindness to the past.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Okay, it looks like everything is a go. Welcome y'all back to a new special edition of Afristream. And again, if you watched the first one, this one is basically a little bit different. This is still a soft launch, but I'm again getting y'all used to what we're doing. I had promised myself that I would do it this weekend, and so that it would push me to get it done every day so that we could have the full launch. But Afristream is basically us looking at news from a Pan-African perspective, taking a global look across, all of our situations and circumstances, and putting it together where we are not thinking from just our particular box, but from a Pan-African people, an Pan-African view. A lot of times we're making decisions or we're looking at the world from one scope, one glass, one box, but we are much more as a people. We are much more as a group. What you saw, it was Sister Chimamanda. If I said it, girl, if you ever see this, please forgive me. Chimamanda, which is her name is Igbo. Hopefully I pronounced it right. I was pronouncing it before, and of course when you go live, you'd be like, oh, so you hope you say it right. But that was a conversation that she was at, or she was at a conference, and she was giving she was speaking on reparations when it comes to stolen art, and she was in Germany. And so when I saw the stream, it was in I saw it around September 27th, so it's a recent stream. And so I looked at it and I said, wow, reparations on a global level, this is not a conversation that just African Americans are having. This is a conversation that is all over the world, and so I said, let's take a look at this and see what's out there. And I was amazed what I found. Now, before we continue, if you're used to watching me on World of Akibaland, if you're used to watching me on The African Speaks, all that is still current. But if you happen to see us on Facebook, and if you're watching on Facebook, what I'm going to ask, I never did it before, but I'm going to do it now. Facebook, we want you to like, comment, and share. We're trying to encourage the algorithm of the internet, of social media. Encouraging the algorithm of social media where we are pulling together a group of people, like-minded people, who can take action on the things we discuss. Taking action on this things we discuss. I'm not an individual, I sit in the community. I don't represent this. This is not a conversation from my community, and I can't say that. However, there is a community of people who are focused on the liberation of Black people, because there is nothing more sacred than the liberation of Black people, and that's the globe over. So let's continue to bring ourselves together. Now, if you happen to be watching at any given time on our YouTube channel, The African Speaks, I would always ask you to subscribe to the channel and then click that bell for notifications of any time that we are streaming live. again. So this is a special edition. And we did say, you know, I'm getting it, I'm working it. The conversation is reparations. The conversation is about reparations, international or global reparations, because we as African Americans think in a box of only thinking African Americans. We say that when we talk about Pan Africa, you know, Pan African experience, we want to run overseas to experience the continent. But there's never real talk about unifying ourselves with our brothers and sisters to the point where we are a global force, a global movement. This is the Marcus, you know, we talk about Marcus Garvey, and the reason why, wow, Afristream came out of a concept that I had when I had a dream that I was having a discussion with Marcus Garvey. Really, and we created something called Afristream mobile app. And I'm sorry, I got to go back for a second. We created the Afristream mobile app. And it said that in the dream and in the conversation I was having, Marcus Garvey said that we now have the technology to reach Black people the way it was never done before in terms of social media. And he said, you got to look at our people. Our people are not using technology to its fullest extent. We're still entertaining ourselves with a tool that could be used to liberate ourselves. Right? None but us can free our minds. So the tools that we use and everything that we have every day has to be utilized for our benefit, not just our entertainment. And so Afristream grew from a music mobile app to now a stream live, and I may be creating another mobile app. So we're gonna talk. I'm gonna call my friends again, and we're gonna see what we can do about it. But tonight's conversation is about reparations. And again, if there's like minds watching, like, comment, and share. I'm a part of a big community, and that is something that we don't know how to do. Influence the like minds with just three things: liking something, commenting something, and sharing it. That creates an algorithm. So every time that we go live as a community, individuals, and again, I created this as a platform for everybody to use. So if there is something on your spirit and on your heart that you want to discuss or talk about, and I can help you flesh it out, and we can do a live stream and it be your voice, because I am the African, but I'm not the only African. And the African deserves to speak. And so allow you and the African in you to speak. So if there's anybody who would like to participate in creating experiences and me working with them, let me know what's on your heart and on your spirit. Let's put it together and let's go. But tonight, the conversation is about reparations, because all over the globe, it is understood that there is not one location on this earth that did not benefit from the transatlantic slave trade. There is not one place anywhere you see people who are of melanated color, melanation, there was some slavery. They got displaced out of Africa, out of the continent, the motherland. And so I took a look at, because this popped up on my feed, my YouTube feed. I'm looking and reading and interacting. I said, all this information, brother, I can't sit on it. You got to share it. What's the best way to share it? Afristream. And so we're sharing it in Afristream. Now, also, there is a African Speaks open Facebook page, and there's an African Speak YouTube page, and there is an Afristream YouTube page. Okay, I may make the Facebook page, but the African Speaks look like we can cover it all, and so that may stay that way. All right. However, recently, as in late September, reparations drew. UN was under scrutiny in the UN, but those who would pay wasn't even there. You get the title. And so what was going on was the city of, well, not the city, it was the Caribbeans, it was South Africa, it was, I think, and then some countries came together where Colombia came through, and so they were in Malaysia. So they were all talking about reparations for the Pan-African community. And so that was the first time I heard that there was a voice inside of the UN, and they're speaking on behalf of a global sense of reparations. Why? Because they dealt with the issue of you know uh, George Floyd. The situation with George Floyd rang around the planet. That bell rang and rang hard. Our grievances as a displaced people in this country, and we built the country. We built the country. Our blood, sweat, and tears built this country. And that displacement of watching somebody, that level of injustice, that second-class citizenship, rang a bell around the world. And so they were discussing it. And they have been discussing it. They've been discussing reparations for years, since the end of slavery. But recently, with George Floyd, it became even more heavier. And so now, can we discuss this? They were in the UN, and they said, we need to start dealing with the issue. Now, the brother from St. Lucia was speaking. The brother from, what was the, let me see, the other Caribbean country was St. Kite was there. They are speaking on behalf of Black people everywhere. And then countries who would not be subjected to pay anything supported it. Because when you crimes against humanity, you can't have a double standard. You can't sit down and rally for the Jews, or the ones who call themselves Jews now, but you can't rally for Africans, the originals. Because then every European nation has to take a look at who they are and who they owe. Let's talk about it. Who they are and who they owe. And so it went as a discussion. Now, the individuals who wasn't there, was it United States weren't there? Nope. Biden wasn't there. Mrs. Harris, the vice president, African-American woman, she wasn't there. You got to be careful of placeholders. Y'all can sit down and wear your Converses and your pearls if you want to, and I give her the clap that she's the first, and that's what I give her. She's the first. But when you got the UN discussing the issue of reparations, if you really represent us, then you sitting in the audience. You're sitting in the audience, and you might have something to say. You might want to discuss it somewhere down the line. But for the United States to boycott it? What? That's an issue. Germany wasn't there. And that's a shock that Germany wasn't there, because Germany has made strides or had discussions, but for some reason Germany wasn't there. Who else wasn't there? Oh, Great Britain wasn't there. Right. Countries that would have to pay that dollar. Countries who were sitting down and they talk about democracy wasn't there. And so they had the discussion and they talked about it. And again, it's been going since in the last 30 years, it's been on and off on Congress's floor. On and off Congress's floor, where it's in, it's out. It's in, it's out. But when you have African nations and you have men of important affairs, is how Marcus Garvey would have it, discussing these things, talking about these things, you know that it's more than just us. When Black people, oh, get over it. Wait a minute, the globe hasn't gotten over it yet. You're talking about African Americans, we're talking about African diaspora. There is a dialogue of reparations. What are our leaders doing? Are our leaders still arguing over not only over local, but you're supposed to be having a global conversation too? I want my community leader to be on a global platform discussing global issues with men of important affairs. Right? Because now that you have, and we talk about it, when you have the UN United Nations Chief of Human Rights speaking on behalf of reparations for African people, that people of African descent, they said, you can look the globe over. This is just not the United States, y'all. You can look the globe over and see the struggles of African people. people of African descent, in every nation that they exist in. They have not been given what they deserve as being human beings and contributors to this life, because we created everything. You want to steal it all from us and claim us second class, and you carry, no, come on. So when they're up there and they're discussing this and it gets real, the question is, do we realize as a people of a struggle, we up here trying to go, and I had an argument with a with a sister, about, we are arguing about, our own personal wealth. Personal wealth. We're arguing about, these trips. I don't know how many sisters crying and, I gotta go. If you ain't got a passport, I ain't talking to you. But well, sister, if you don't have a global perspective about what Black people are going through and a mission to give your God-given medicine to your people, breaks. Because this is what the world is discussing this way. This is what the world is discussing. And so where do we sit on this, and how does that rest? This is not just a question or conversation between you and I. When you got men and women of important affairs, African countries discussing it, Ghana making major moves, and this is why I'm saving Afristream, because that's going to come up too. Zimbabwe moves. You got everybody making moves. What? To be free men. To be free men amongst those who call themselves free men. We're supposed to have what everybody else has, and the authority and ability for us. With the video that was being played at the beginning, she was discussing the return of art that belongs to another country, Namibia. And we're going to talk about that. That's going to drop in a few seconds. She was talking about returning art to a country that Germany pillaged. What? Yes, that Germany destroyed. The colonizers of Germany walking into West Africa. I believe that's West Africa. And killing droves of people. You got men of important affairs discussing this. And then, wait a minute. Because now they said, well, why should we, and this will come up again. Why should we worry about what our forefathers did? Because you benefited off of our fathers. Your riches and your lifestyle is maintained off the blood and sweat of my family. But we got problems eating? Really? And you don't see it right to do a service when you said crimes against humanity, a state of genocide against a race of people because of their skin color, is being discussed heavily. It's being discussed to the point where, and I found this, Germany is to pay $1 billion in reparations to an African country, Namibia. Now, wait, and before I go, I don't want to go too fast, because I want to give you a piece of this. Germany, and this is not me, again, I do research. I sit here, this is what I do. I told y'all when Corona hit, how are you spending your time? If you come out of Corona the same way you went in, you wasted God's energy in you. Let's see what Germany doing.
Taken nearly 6 years of talks, but today Germany is for the first time acknowledging that it committed genocide during its colonial rule in what is now Namibia in southern Africa. German troops massacred tens of thousands of Herero and Nama people between 1904 and 1908. Now, more than 100 years later, it has reached a deal with the government of Namibia on how to atone for the atrocities. For more, let's cross live to DW Court.
Colonial crimes of genocide. After that speech, I'm going to say there'd be a chain effect. There's something working in our ancestral spirituality where we are coming up from a point of not being oppressed to where we are saying, look, this is who we are. And somewhere along the line, it seems like white folks might be getting a conscience. Certain individuals are getting, at least Germany said, yeah, that was colonialism was genocide. Yeah, that was an act against humanity. Yeah, we did a whole lot. And then you have a sister in the at the last conference, and she's at the museum talking about why don't you return the art that you stole? And white folks are saying, if you listen to the whole thing, the white folks will sit down and say, well, you know, if we give it to you, you don't know how to take care of it. Well, who are you? If I have a pair of sneakers and they're mine, who are you to tell me how to take care of what's mine? That's the issue of power. You feel me? You know you oppressed when you can't have what belongs to your mama, your daddy, your forefathers, your culture. They took it, so they're gonna keep it. Why? Because it's valuable. Now we're talking about Namibia. Wow, Namibia. This triggered another thought, right? And I'm gonna tell you this. Woo, Namibia. If that sound familiar to you, it is because it comes. You've heard of the sister from Namibia, where she was in the Olympics. And I remember seeing her at the Olympic trials. I follow track, and see, track and field, the Olympics is what made me sit down and say I gotta do Afristream, because we were arguing about these black women who were dominating the field, the track and field industry, breaking records all left and right. We were crying about over one sister who barely represents the true power of black women, barely in terms of her behavior. No, and I'm gonna have that conversation. Oh, we're gonna have that one. I did some research on that, so y'all not ready to hear, right? We're gonna do it. But with this sister, Mboma, she came out of nowhere, and she doesn't have a stride or anything, and she was smoking people. So if you heard of Namibia, now what would life be like? When she first started, she didn't have a Nike sponsorship or anything. And she was smoking them. I saw her at one thing smoking them, and one dude, and I'm like, he don't look like a coach. And then I realized that Germany was the country that colonized Namibia. So there was the big white dude who was by her side was definitely had to be, I'm gonna just assume he was German, and he's there. And why? Because it's how they colonized. He saw her run and said, let's go. Because other than her, I didn't see Namibia in the Olympics. But she was crushing them. And then if you watch what they told her, she couldn't run the 800. She would have won so many more awards or trophies if she was allowed just to be her. But they said, you got your testosterone level is high naturally. So I smoke them. And so she had to drop down and run shorter races. But if you were listening to in terms of Mboma, and in Namibia, I get it out. I'm sorry, getting tongue twisted because I get excited, right? You realize that what would a country be like if they could support track and field as a lifestyle the way the United States do? With what she has, who would we see? What will we experience in terms of the black excellence of athletes with her coming out of nowhere? And now the government is getting what, $1 billion? And so we hope that the government, and that's another discussion when we talk about reparations, because Germany said, yeah, we'll give it to the government. We're not giving it to people. So then we got to wait for that money to trickle down. Trickle down before I get it. I can't get a blessing now. However, we're not going to knock the efforts of Germany. We're going to say that continue doing right by the community. We're going to hope that the individuals who are in office were not put in office by European society, because that happens a whole lot. And so even though I give you $1 billion, I get to control the $1 billion, and I get to control what it produces. And if it produces anything, I get the benefits from it. And that's what Zimbabwe was dealing with when they was dealing with, I think that was Zimbabwe, when they was dealing with the issue of coca, or that might be Ghana. And I'll do my research, look again, because my head is foggy. But we'll take a look at that. But what would a country be like? The first time I saw her run, she looked like she barely had a pair of Pro Kids. Next time, yeah, Nike came out and looked her up. I think that she looked like she got Adidas on now. She killing it, smoking it, making history. What happens if What about her ancestors, those who coming after her? What type of world they would need to enjoy or be a part of to experience where she's at? That's important. We are talking about what would life look like. What would life look like with a global experience of reparations for the Pan-African diaspora? Wow. What could we achieve as a people in that experience? They are discussing it, so why not us? They are engaged in the conversation, so why not us? What are our leaders discussing? What are our leaders putting together? We can barely use technology. We don't even want to sit down and dive into technology, to pull us together. But we won't have to do something because we need to be having these conversations with men of important affairs. A greater global leadership. And I'm speaking about reparations because the concept, the situation, because when we first started Afristream, I did another a quick blast, and we did a thing Afristream, and it was about Haiti. Now we have someone else making a write-up on Haiti, and hopefully it's good. But this is going to be a quick answer because it blends into what I'm talking about in terms of reparations, which is since 1825, Haiti has paid France $21 billion to preserve its independence. Isn't it time to pay them back? $21 billion. And let's talk about this. We're just going to talk about this situation. Haiti receives their independence or fights for their independence. Bloodshed, hardcore war to get France out that country. 1804. By 1825, maybe 20 some odd years after independence, they show up at the shores of Haiti with a multitude, a fleet of armed warships to decimate the country that has already been struggling, trying to pull economics together. And France said, if you do not pay us the money that we deserve for enslaving this area, we're going to destroy you. So Haiti being forced into extortion, because that's exactly what it is. Forced. And, I ain't got much words to talk about France. You feel me? I had another friend call me tonight, was like, screw France. Because they are definitely self-entitled, the group, when she travels. And I said, ain't that something? The people of France deserve to pay Haiti back. Because they were forced. Now, not only did they make Haiti pay back the money, there was a write-up where it's probably in this article where an older man can remember his father hearing news from the Haitian government, please, whatever you have within your finances, you're already poor. Can you give something extra to the government other than your taxes to help us pay off France? Why? Because we're a free nation. And what the European nations did to Haiti was they did not partake in the trade interaction with Haiti. Why? Because Haiti free during slavery times. Haiti was free during slavery. And they felt that if Haiti developed a stronger sense of independence, it could affect all of the European countries around it. And so we're going to threaten them and keep them in poverty to this day. Still. And so you want to talk about Haitians and what Haiti would actually mean to come up. We should fight for them, man. And I'm hoping the individual who's writing the story and the excerpt on Haiti, she come with it. She says she ready. She says she coming because what Haiti is dealing with after the earthquake, another earthquake hitting Haiti. I don't even know if the earthquake will real. It's my conspiracy theory. I think it's the weather machine that does it to make sure that this country doesn't come up. And you don't want, the reason why you don't want Haiti in our country, it's not because they'll be illegal, because you ain't doing that to a lot of other people. But you don't want them here and you're mistreating them is because they come with that liberated spirit. come with that revolutionary spirit. They come with that fight. African Americans, they ain't got that Haitian blood. They ain't got that Haitian fire. Because you come from there, you gonna fight to get what you feel you owe. Because that's where they come from. That's where we come from. We are from the same blood, and that's Haiti. But when you trace Haiti back, it's the motherland, Africa. How many of us still got that blood in us? But we gonna fight for everything. Let the African in you speak. Let the African in you speak for other Africans. So what would that country look like right now if France says, you know what? Here's $21 billion. Now it's not a handout. They can pay for their food. They can pay for infrastructure development. They can pay for everything that was stolen from them. They can get up back on their feet. We don't understand how much slavery is done to the diaspora because we don't talk about it. We want to glorify the vision of Africa, but we're not realizing that there was not one place not affected of African of melanated nations. They're all affected. Where does it say? It gave me a list of the different. Yeah, the Americas, the Caribbean, Europe, Middle East, and Africa itself still show the legacy and the trauma of the slave trade. Still show it. And that's just a few. Wherever we are, we still show those legacies. Why? Because we should be fighting for liberation and freedom and equality. That's the most human thing and human experiences you could have. Equality. In the United States, they say, let me get this right. In the United States, it is said, because they equated, some people equated different ways. They said if you paid reparations to African Americans, that would be anywhere between 4.7 trillion to 17 trillion. And on the average, it would give every black person in the United States $155,000. That ain't every family, it's every person. We get $155,000. Now, during Corona, where it's shut down, and the only people who are not worried about food are the rich. Come on, I ain't seen nobody worried about eating. And you want to sit down and talk about toilet paper? Yeah, because they don't know how much money they're gonna have, and they definitely couldn't stock up way before this. But rich people sitting on rich, yeah, you got stockpiles of everything. You got a full kitchen. Some of us don't have full kitchens. So when they say, even in Atlanta, when they say it's gonna snow, we don't have full kitchens. So we gotta run out and spend our extra on food because we may not be able to get out to the grocery store the next day. That's why there's a rush like that. But the individuals who have full kitchens and got stockpiles of food for days, they're not doing this. The importance of reparations, what? They talked about how black folk was spending that $1,200 of money, and yeah, I didn't take that because I'm not gonna take what I don't need because I've been working. But I'm not going. You can tell what they want. $1,200 they're getting for the government, and they're getting their unemployment. That's not reparations. But if you gave us reparations, do you think the government would have needed to give us the money? If I had $155,000 in my account before COVID hit, what do you need to be giving me money for? You don't. So I don't know how many trillions of dollars they gave out or what they said they're giving out. But if you want to chalk up 4.7 trillion and you give out to each individual, what then? Just keep going. Why? Because we'll have enough food to eat, go shop, clothes, education. What? We might buy some cars. The economy will be rolling. Why? Because you gave us what we owe. You say we owe. And so that's the conversation, which is another conversation, giving reparations in terms of personal reparations versus governmental reparations, because Germany said, I'm not giving it to the people, I'm giving it to the government. But then does that change the people's lives? Does it change it? Oh, we're going to get you jobs. Well, I understand, but I'm hungry now. Let it hit my bank account so I can get up and go get me food now. Sometimes that's certain circumstances the people are living in. Now. Haiti need it now. Give them the $21 billion and watch what change happens. Break that up and let the people get it. Building infrastructure where that country could live solely independent on its own. Every African nation. Stop giving away your resources. We're going to talk about that coming up too. Woo! We are the resources of America. We are. Right there. And we give it freely. We always talk about how much money black folk make in America. Come on, how much? So how much can we keep? Let that be our reparations. If we can pour something into something. Again, I have a community that I'm a part of. And so I'm trying to bring the community to you. And if I can get the community to come to you and they talk and interact, yeah, I wouldn't mind asking you for finances. Now, if you want to help the African Speaks, yeah, go on to World of the Keebaland and hit donate, because this is what I do. All this is out of my pocket. But what would the world look like if we could do these things for ourselves? One of the things that I saw, and I couldn't get a good image of it. And so I want to talk to you about that, which is, let me go back to the reparations screen. Okay, there I go. One of the things that I saw that I would love to talk about was South Carolina. Asheville, South Carolina. Right. Did anybody hear about that? Last year, Asheville, South Carolina, they voted that the city of Asheville, which is let me get the numbers right, 83% white and 12% black. After George Floyd and the riots and everything else, they was like, yo, we got to change this. Do you see the anger that is sitting in this new generation that is not going to hold hands and say, we shall overcome? Do you see this new generation? And you want to do this in front of this new generation who say, wait a minute, we're not going through what our forefathers went through. We're not. We're going to do something about it. If it's non-programmatic, because it is. That blind rage, because that's what it is. But then they're not the only, the young black individuals, the millennials are not the only ones enraged. They're not. But Asheville, North Carolina, they took the reparations and they said, you know what, we're going to pay this back. We're going to change inner city communities or locations where African Americans exist in deep disparity. We're going to change this. We're going to begin to invest in those neighborhoods, those communities, and those schools. We're going to change the haves and haves nots. We're going to bridge that together. No, they did not give personal reparations, which was promised to us at the end of slavery. 40 acres and a mule. What? They ain't giving us the 40 acres and a mule because they don't want the individuals to actually use their own ingenuity. They want to still control what they feel, government feels black folk need. Now, give me my own. I guarantee you give me $150,000 with my concepts right now, man, you don't want to see me coming. I'll build a whole city. I told my real talk, and if they watch it, I told my head pastor, take the chains off my neck and let me access some resources, and I can show you what it means to free black people. Got that Haitian blood in me. What? Got that Zulu, got that African, got that Maasai. Woo! It's all in me. That's what I'm about. So, yeah. They said we can't give that. And that's something that we need to talk about and measure. What it would look like. And so with a Pan-African perspective, you realize that this is all over. The conversation of reparations is a global conversation. It's a global conversation. Africans everywhere, continents, countries, pockets of people, people who are non-African are discussing this. What would the world look like if we were fair to those we tried to destroy? We are wealthy because of them. And if you don't think that there's another move against Africa, I'm going to show you that in these next sets, the series that come up. So stay tuned. But what would it look like if we had our local leadership connecting, understanding that we are still suffering from the mark of slavery, and we need a unified Pan-African voice in the States that connects with the unified Pan-African voice. This is why I was mad at individuals who were choosing to fight for the sister, God, it's my brain, Richardson, the track star, over the Jamaicans, who was dominated. And all they were going after was history. I said, well, if the sister's not coming, and I'm going to have this, and you know, what we had to look at was the Pan-African perspective. Black women all over was dominating. What? Coming from all areas of the globe. What? It's in us if we're giving right opportunity. Right opportunity to be who God called us to be. What would this world look like if every European nation paid its reparations and its due to those who they tried to destroy? You give us second-class schools and call us even. So we come out with a lesser education, and you try to get on your march, get set, go. You redline us. All interest rates are higher. You know, if you see the name Shaquita on a resume, Quandarius, Charmel Mika, whatever you want to name yourself, you see those names, you take the resume and throw it aside. You got black people naming their kids certain names so that they are not, when you send a resume, you're not seen. So now you got LinkedIn where you put your face up there, and you pray that those who see you will see the work that you do and the quality of your history, and not judge you by the color of your skin. Because now technology is real. They're looking at you and says, do you represent what we want us to represent as a company? Can we pay you to be the best you? But when you look at our profiles, and this is even people in my community, you look at their profiles on Facebook and you like, what you doing? What you represent? Who did God call you to be? You question everything because you don't know. I had one teacher who was great when she was teaching her kids. She said, social media is your autobiography. It is who you are. And so what happens if we stand up for who we are and we have that unified black leadership? We have a discussion within ourselves of what type of reparations is best for us. Governmental policies over personal reparations. Discuss that. And so if it's governmental policies, what policies in the areas of our community looks right? And even more important, also to even recognize even now that we are all still scarred from the mark of slavery. All of us, all over the globe. And that's why African nations are fighting for this. Nations are fighting for this. Germany dropped $1 billion. We already said we was what, 17 trillion? That was a drop in the bucket according to Germany's economic status. 22 billion? How much is France worth? I didn't even look that up. I should have looked in terms of what France's yearly take is as a country. Way more than 22 billion. What would it look like if we had a constant front? Our communities would change. How we look at each other would change. If that was there, it's that Pan-African perspective. I don't see black people and see separation. I see black people and wonder, what is the power of who we can be? And how do we network that? That's what Garvey was talking to me when I had that dream and say, brother, you need to jump into technology and you need to do it on a real level. So I ask you to like, I ask you to comment, I ask you to share. I ask, allow this voice to grow. Check out World of Akiba Land, and I'll have pockets where you can see we have institutional power here. My church is the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church, Shrines of the Black Madonna. And we will talk more about what we have done in the last 68 years. This is our anniversary month. And this is why I had to get these things out, anniversary month, to pay homage to those who have gone before. What would the world look like if we were unified, one mind, one body, one people? Giving thanks to Marcus Garvey for giving us the concept and the idea that we are a people with no boundaries, with no borders. And wherever we are, we share who we are with each other, because we are all fighting for one thing. We want to be what God called us to be as a people. One love. See you next time. Where's that? Where's my intro at? Oh, I wasn't supposed to do that. I was supposed to leave. See y'all.